There we go. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and thanks to you, Iris, for being here. I just realized that I'm saying Iris because we're both Dutch, and that's how we would pronounce your name here. But I'm guessing in English we should say Iris, or what do you think?
No, most people say still Iris.
Okay, so we go with Iris. Okay, so Iris Sikking works as the curator of photography at the Fotomuseum in The Hague, here in the Netherlands. And I think it would be lovely to start with, just a bit of the background. How did you become a curator, and when and where? The basics of your career. How did you get here?
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me, Seven, and so lovely to do this with you, Ilvy. We know each other since like years. I still remember our first meeting, but I don't know where it is or what we discussed, but I still remember.
I do too.
It was somewhere in Amsterdam, that's what I know. Thank you for this question. I actually studied at the Film Academy in Amsterdam. So I became a film editor for about 10 years. And I had this moment in time also when I got my 2 daughters that I thought, well, there's maybe more that I can do than only do film editing, which I still like. It's a lovely job, I must say. But I felt this need to study at the university. So I made time when the kids were still little, so it was quite a good timing, to do a master's photographic studies in Leiden University, and which was focusing on photography, on curatorial practices, on the theory, history of photography. And I actually didn't know what to do with it, but I just thought this is very good to do that now and to focus on what an image can tell. I think that's what I kind of missed a little bit in the films that I was editing, because it was mostly talking heads, I mean, I can talk about it for hours, but it's not possible. So I did a study, and then I figured out during the study, it took me like 2 years, this 1-year master, that I actually really like to make exhibitions, and that it has a lot to do with film editing, because it's constructing a story, structuring the narrative, and then not on one timeline that goes from A to B and there's no way out, but in a space. And how do you tell a visual story in a space? So yeah, I created some chances, and I never edited a film anymore after that. So this was 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. I worked for Paradox, probably a well-known foundation for many, specialized in documentary projects. I will also give an example of one of those projects that I did there and that really feel like a key project for me. And I did some curation for some bigger festivals in Europe, in Krakow and in Germany. And then suddenly this job came around 2 years ago, to succeed someone that was going to retire from the Fotomuseum. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. And it worked out. And I'm now together with Willemijn van der Zwaan as my co-curator at the Fotomuseum.
So you did a very interesting path of becoming where you're now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what your main responsibilities are currently at the museum. I know it's a big role, so it has a lot.
Yeah, but there's one main responsibility, and that's definitely make exhibitions. I mean, that is kind of the other way around that I used to work. Usually I had an idea, if there was a position offered or a temporary position offered, or there were some bunch of people that you were thinking, well, let's do something together. and then find a location. And now the location is there and it has to be filled. There need to be like 7, 8 exhibitions a year in our museum. So it's kind of train that you step on. And I only now understand people working in museums that they only have attention for you when they finish the opening. So then, you know, they are kind of free and they are open-minded, and then they dive again in this like, path of making that exhibition. And that's then, okay, then it's done and hop to the next. So that's sometimes quite demanding, because next to that we also have a collection. We have a collection of around 10,000 objects. So we are responsible for that. And I think in our case, we are a small museum, although we are part of a bigger art museum, but we also are very close to how we profile the museum. So what kind of photography we like to show, what kind of audience we like to get in, what kind of public program we do. So that's also roles that I take with me, although they are not in my job description, but I just like to think wider than only an exhibition.
And have you seen, even though you've been in this role for only 2 years now, but have you seen the photography industry connected to the museum industry? Have you seen it change? Also from earlier on in your career when you were at Paradox?
Yeah, because I think the changes are, I think they're always there, but not per se in the last 2 years. What I think I've witnessed, what I didn't know when I started 20 years ago, was the role of museums becoming more important for photographers as an outlet to show their work. You know, as we all know, the media industry dropped down in terms of, you know, the possibility to make images, to be a staff photographer. So the museum became a much more interesting and important outlet to show your story. And also maybe, and connected to that is of course, there's always the news photography, the press photography. Well, that changed a lot, as we also know. But the longer stories, the long picture stories, as they were used to call in like 50s and 60s, they don't get a place, not that easy anymore, less easier than in the past. So then a museum is an interesting platform for photographers to show their work.
Yeah, it definitely has gone down, where especially the pages, of course, less pages, sometimes more online, but to see your work in a museum is, of course, a whole different experience. Do you then also see the type of photographers that approach you? Do you see that change? Are there pitches coming in from more, magazine photographers compared to maybe the more photographers
sometimes
that are leaning towards art more, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes, well, especially the second bunch, of course, and also I taught at art academies for 10 years, mainly one in Breda, in the south of the Netherlands, at St. Joost. And we were not anymore educating them for journalistic practice, but more for an art practice. So what can you tell with photography? What does the medium mean? And then still people on the side have a portrait studio or do some assignments, smaller assignments for newspapers or magazines, but it's of course then less and less. But also thinking about, okay, what is needed for a museum show. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the main difference is there that imagine you have like 10 pages with your photography, there's always text. You know, so it's contextualized, and that is sometimes missing in a museum. So I still remember my very first show that I saw. I mean, not the very first photography show that I saw, but when I started at the university, I thought, oh, you know, images can do the thing. You know, I mean, as in film, I was telling, you know, it's less about what could an image convey. You know, what could you do visually, cinematic, spoken. But then I saw this documentary project, which was actually in the old building of the Fotomuseum, The Hague. And I was like, yeah, but these are like very interesting journalistic images, but what are they about? I need text, you know? So I had made this switch from like film to photography, and immediately I was kind of disappointed. Like, okay, but if it's this, you know, then in a film, you have all those different layers, you have images, you have sounds, you know. So that's also a reason that I started to work at Paradox, where the Bas Vroege, who's still the director, is experimenting with other kind of formats next to or from, you know, extended photography, expanded photography, however you want to call it, but with different formats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think especially well, you'll show now. Maybe we should move there. The Project Poppy is a very good example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, please share because we'd love to see some of the work that you've worked on, and also everyone keep in mind that you can ask any questions, put them in the Q&A box for people who just joined. Oh, a lot more people joined recently, so please feel free to ask any questions to Iris in the Q&A box. I will keep an eye on them and make sure to ask them.
Okay, thank you. I can see you still, Ilvy. That's nice. And I see the stop share button, and you have my text slide, eh? So that's
exactly.
correct.
Yes,
okay,
it's all working
okay.
properly.
Well, this was the kind of summary from what we just talked about. So I go to the first exhibition. I would love to show you 2 exhibition examples. I keep an eye on the time. Yes. I was thinking, does it work? It works. So the first project I like to show you is of Lisa Bernard, The Canary and the Hammer. It's about gold and the meaning and the value of gold in our economical system, in our capitalist society. And of course, it's also about beauty, but it's about much, much more. And she decided in 2016 to dive into this like material, and she created a book in 2019, and the show came out I think slightly later. Was of course also the COVID-19, so it took a while before the first show was up, and I was happy to show it in Mannheim. It was part of the Biennale for Actuele Fotografie that I curated in 22. So this is just like the entrance slide, and especially, of course, on the left, the entrance to the mine. And now I switched to the same image in the museum, because currently we are showing her work in our in one of what we call like the medium space. It's about 150 to 200 square meters. I think it is always gray, so it's quite hard to photograph, so don't look at the quality of these images. But what I like about her project is that she tries to visualize something that is quite invisible, because gold is, of course, you can keep gold in your hand, and we will see some gold actually in the exhibition. But what it does and what it means for people, you can't see that, let alone you can photograph that. So she started her journey into gold by going to Peru, to a gold mine there, fair trade gold mine. That's where she took these pictures. And what is interesting about the 2 football fields that you see on the left is that the women are on the right image, still playing football in the desert. Actually, it's a desert town where the gold mine is underneath. And since it became a fair trade mine in 2018, there was some more money for them, because they are not allowed to go into the mine, because that will bring bad luck. So they really have to search the gold in the tailings of the mine. I will show you that in a bit. But with the extra money that came around, the men decided to put down an artificial football field instead of making pipelines for water, because it's really dry around there. That's what the women voted for. So that's a very interesting story that you don't see in the picture. So that's why there's quite a lot of text in this exhibition. It's not only captions, but also, as you see on the right, there's the white, that is the original text that Lisa wrote for every chapter of her book, of her project. There are 5 chapters. And for me as a curator, I find super interesting to have lots of text in the exhibition space, but I also know that people find it sometimes frustrating, or too much or too hard. So I figured out, let us make a kind of summary. So that's the one that you see on the most right. So this is the most important things that you need to know to understand this chapter.
I think it gives so much more depth to stories like this. Otherwise, you just browse past and you look at amazing images, but you want to know the context, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But it's always like, people could be kind of, frustrating, like, oh, do I have to read that all to understand it? And otherwise I don't understand it. Well, you can also make a choice. Something that she inserted in the exhibition for the first time that I also didn't show in Germany was a very documentary, straightforward videos. Because she has always been in doubt, can I just, photograph these women? I'm coming from, a country that had like, huge colonies. We strive from the gold, in Great Britain, of course, for ages, still do. So can I show that? That's when we decided to make this kind of makeshift construction that you also see in the video on the left, where they wash out with mercury, which is super poisonous, the gold, because then it splits. Well, that's chemical process. And there was certainly a video, and I think it comes after this, that she had her doubts, and I hope it's going to play. So I just go to the next. I think it goes on for just a couple of minutes. Because this is actually how the women search for gold. So they have little hammers. This is what comes out of the mine, the stones that comes out of the mine, and that's where they search for pieces of gold that are part of the bigger stones. And then they have to wash that, and then they can sell it in the market. So what she did, also by trying to answer that question as having the power with the camera, coming from far, photographing them, just be there like for 2-3 weeks, is that she portrayed them. And then decided, and then that's where I switched to the German installation, to print their portraits on very translucent Japanese paper, very thin, and the backside of this print with gold leaves from this mine, to give them some value back, to honor them, to say, this is not just women that I can just photograph and show everywhere around, but I give them something. I put them on a pedestal, and also in the way of showing them, you can see it shines through. So it's a very old gold print technique from the 19th century, used by Edward Curtis. So there's also a reference to the history of photography, of all the images that he made of the native Indians in the USA. And as a visitor, you can see, well, like here you see it from 4, and then the background you can see as well. And you see the gold shining through.
How much of this is something that a photographer brings in? I guess it depends on the photographer as well. And how much of the curator? The way of presenting the paper, I can imagine.
This is totally her. This is really something that she figured out. Also, really to answer her questions, her doubts. What can I do? What am I allowed to do? What is my position? Can I make this story? So this is totally something she came up with. So every location that wanted to show these images, they have to show it like this. So that's very set.
Is that, do you encounter that often, that photographers come in with a very set plan, maybe even a selection of images that they really want?
It all happens. Yeah, it all happens. That happens. And what also happens is just, I think this is my selection. But by the way, I can send you everything. Whoop. And I'm like, oh, okay. So everything is there, there's some, But I think that might be changing also, as I referred already to my teaching, and also to Paradox, that if you want to be in a museum, or if you, I mean, to present it in a certain way does also have a meaning. Does have a meaning, you know, it's meaningful. So for example, here, this is not per se photographic, but here we are already at the next chapter in Hong Kong, but I also see the time that I can't do them all, but you know, we see how far we come. But this is around Hong Kong, where there are illegal workshops, they're called, where people try to get out the gold of, well, our mobile phones, you know, so for recycling the gold, or out of our computers, our motherboards. It's a big one you see here on the right. On the left, you see other motherboards from computers. So there's actually gold in it. And on the right, you have a collection of stones that she took from the mine in Peru. And there's actually one that has gold in it. So it's valuable. And on this side at the bottom, you see old parts of mobile phones that are taken out together that she took from Hong Kong. So I think in between her photography, this is very strong. I think you see it here. Here you see the display case, the gray one there, almost in the center. So to suddenly see the real physical material, also as a reference still to the women, which are around the corner here of this wall, and also to understand what these people in the workshop are actually doing. And they also take out the gold by using very poisonous fluids, you know, to get that done. So the next chapter that she did was going into talk to scientists. For example, this is something, it's a kind of, how do you say? Well, something that gold can do is light up leaves. So this might be in the future a possibility that we don't need poles in the street anymore, but that we can treat the leaves and the trees in a certain way that they can give the light. So there's also this very good and positive side of gold. She went to California, of course, what we all know from the gold rush area. There are still people that are searching for gold, and sometimes they find something. So this is also materials that she finds around. So again, you know, there's this this fluid going from pictures, still pictures, to this materiality. And in the display case is a letter from the gold rush from a woman to man, you know, like, I miss you, blah blah, and then the situation is horrible, blah blah, etc. But we may find some gold, and then we come back and we have some money.
I think the combination is very strong here with these paraphernalia and the pictures, and they also don't overshadow each other.
No.
It's balanced.
Yeah, there is for sure. And also this Walt Disney, Pocahontas, that's where it all started, when England went to Jamestown and see the way it started, founded the first town where gold was found. So this beautiful romantic movie is made that is not according to the facts. So we also explain that story on the wall. And then she ends the show with the next chapter in finding, how do you say? Well, finding materials, expensive materials. I lost the word.
Excavate or
But now there's of course a fight starting, as there has been a fight of who owns, you know, what's underground, which led to a lot of conflicts, as we all know, and migration, etc. And poverty is now the fight
for minerals.
For minerals, exactly, finding minerals in space. So that's the future, let's say. That's already going on, but it's the future. So that's our last chapter, and that reconnects again with the women finding the gold in the tailings. So that is this show. So I think it's nice to switch to what's for me kind of key project, because it has this blend of film and photography. And there was a project that came on my desk when I was working for Paradox Foundation that I just mentioned. and was made by Robert Knot and Antoinette de Jong, two Dutch journalists, but especially Antoinette is also radio maker, broadcaster, writer, interviewer, everything else than photography, but also photographer. For example, the cover image is hers. No one knows, it's not indicated, but I can tell you.
I didn't know this. I have the book. I didn't know.
Yeah, it is, and there are more. Well, and it was a super complicated project, and before we had this book, it took us literally years to find a way to present this and to get it all together, because this is a guest for what is from Afghanistan, the trade in opium, in heroin, and where does that all lead to? And everything where heroin and the trade in heroin is, let's say, passing through, things happen. What I describe here in a couple of sentences. So it has all to do with globalization, of course. It is all, we can get heroin here in the streets, as we all know. But on its way, things happen, and these are also the very conflicting areas where conflicts arise because of the heroin distribution coming along, let's say, to put it just a little bit simple for now. But when they came,
that it's a very timeless subject.
It is,
because you still see a lot about poppy and heroin, and
yeah. And I think for them it started with these beautiful flowers, because they met each other in the early 90s when the civil war was going on in Afghanistan. And they felt totally in love with the country, with the beauty, with the people that live there. And they still have a very strong connection with the country. So what they didn't know or realized until a certain moment, until we were sitting at the table in Paradox with a group of people, working with them, that they had all these stories, collected all these stories during the year. So that's why I always show the index. You see the different countries, you see the different periods that they have been there. And when we started in 2009, I think it was, we were like, oh yeah, you did a couple of beautiful stories in the last few years. Well, let's put those together. And then suddenly we thought, but you had a story of like 98 of Somalia. Oh, you have been in Kosovo in 89. Let's include that, or 98, sorry. Afghanistan, of course, 2001, super important in this whole story of heroin production and distribution. So that was the moment that everyone got crazy, like, okay, we have to take this all together and embrace this, like, all these different styles of photography also. So this is another indication. This is the end of the book where they actually have been and have photographed everything, have traveled to. And this is an example of one of the reports, let's say, that they made somewhere in 2007 was this. So those pictures also ended up in the work in the end that I will show you. And this is the trafficking routes of heroin. And these are based on research that is out there. I mean, it's not only their own research. And especially apart from the part in Africa, as you see in this map, they followed from Afghanistan to the west, let's say, via Russia, Kosovo, Turkey, Albany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, of course, and it's kind of end note in England, in London. And how we came to this book was, I mean, I still don't know. Because also the graphic designers, Kumer and Herman, who really did a great job, of course, in embracing this enormous collection of images, stories that Antoinette had written, but again wrote for the book. So I think it's like 20% is text in the book, but they're very tiny pages. So they have a different feeling as well. And she went back in her memory and interviewed people and constructed, let's say, the travel. So literally from 93, that was the first time she was on her own, and only 95, she met Robert when he came there as a photographer from the Netherlands as well. This is her image, for example. this is Robert. So then they started to do things together, but you see, that it hops from country to country, just to, not to make a chronological order, but to also to show that everything happens at the same time. What we also did was making the choice not only to use the end result, let's say, of an image, but also contact sheets, like in this, to let it more feel like, okay, this is something shot, it's on the road, it's like something that happens, and to give it this kind of filmic outlook, as you see. And also always in the left bottom corner is a fax, that's research that they did about the situation in Somalia in this case. But
the
on the
book
right,
has a lot of what's the word, movement, literally.
Yeah, a lot of
not
movement.
Just in the pictures, but in the way it's edited and designed.
Yeah, but also a lot of layers. I still find it quite funny that we decided to do the index pages, so page 109 here. But it was a kind of the only way to know where you were or something. I still think, well, maybe we could do it without it, but it feels like still as a good decision. And the first time that the graphic designer showed us this, we were like, no, because this is like a picture in a magazine with a text on top of it. We can't do that in a photo book, We had huge discussions about it. But it actually makes it, because it's so layered. And then later on, this factual information came on the bottom left. Because this is a part of a story of Antoinette that is then repeated in the purple pages. And this is an amazing story. That for one, but also because it's on top of the image, it immediately relates, of course.
I love the last sentence here, by the way, or were you going to go to that?
Oh yeah, that's maybe good to say that, because there will be, from the video, I have an example. So indeed, I'm watching CNN as I pack. It's September 11, 2001. So keep that in mind for a moment. So again, like the cinematic playfulness with images, because indeed they came into Pakistan then in 2001 after the attacks on the World Trade Center. Well, even more images. I just flipped through also to show you the difference, the variety, also the use of different kind of cameras during like 20 years of shooting materials, or almost 20. Is it 20 years? Well, 15, 16 years, This kind of end is almost the end of the book, where the heroin trade ends in the streets of London. This is a typical example of having a Hasselblad camera, so the square, for black and white images in Afghanistan in the countryside, 2009, so much, much later. And then Dubai, of course, where lots of the money is going that comes out of the trade. So this is almost the end of the book. So then, and the good thing was that we had to make a book and an exhibition in 1 year. But it really helped, because making the book helped to structure the story, to visualize, to see what is needed, what can we skip, because you have
also
to skip things.
Sometimes.
Yes. Because the idea came from Bas, from the director of Paradox, to make a huge screen. So, but this is actually 4 projectors, so it's 4 different screens, so you can play with that. So then you can also play with things that happen at the same time, but in different countries, and you can again create all these kind of layers. So immediately after we had kind of set the book, we worked with an editor to make the installation. And I think after this, there's a small example. So it was like, it is 40 minutes loop. Most of the people we see it really experience it like 20 minutes or so. The stories run indeed parallel. It is all fragments, and it's one big chaos, because that has been for a long time the title of the project has been chaos, because that is what it is. You can't make sense of this, because something happens there and it has an influence on something that is happening there. And then shit happens.
I like
and
that it moved to poppy, because even though poppy is the name of the plant, it also, the word poppy also has something chaotic in it. It's like,
and also funny,
jumpy.
and but also kind of funny and maybe naive, or so in the end, you know, someone wrote this wonderful thing in the end about it, that you have the hyper realism of the former journalistic practice and then the more abstract qualities of art and literature. So we like that quote from a curator in Luxembourg where it was showed.
I think actually that is where now, a few years later, the industry has moved more towards. Right?
Exactly.
Luckily
that's also
so,
what I
because
described.
I think it was quite stiff in the beginning. I've been a photojournalist now for 18 years, and even though I love the photojournalistic approach to things, and for me it's very important that the lines don't blur too much, or maybe not at all, to be honest, but I like to add things to it that make the work more artistic, and luckily there's a lot of newspapers and magazines that are also now, and museums, leaning more towards that.
What was something else that was very new for that time when we were working on this, so between 2009 and 2012, when we had the premiere here in Rotterdam, was that it was possible and it was okay to speak out as a journalist yourself. So have your own voice. So write from the I form, you know, like I was there, I did that and that, you know, there was, of course, before there was like, you couldn't imagine that. So we had again a long discussion, in this case with Antoinette, because we really wanted her to tell the story. So she is in the end the voiceover and binds it all together, binds all the different stories together. Nice. And I think the next slide, and otherwise the slide after, but I'm going to introduce it because otherwise you don't know what's happening. Although it's a 40 minutes loop, there's a kind of starting point, and that's defined, and we defined 9/11 as the starting point of the story. So it starts then with black, so your screen is black. It's 9/11 in the upper right corner, because we used indications of dates and years in the video. On the video screen, and then you hear two people speaking. We took that from YouTube, so there was found footage from two women who talk about the attack on the World Trade Center, and she ends that with something like, "Oh, it's 9, so I hope there's no one at work." And then the video starts. It's a couple of minutes. This is still an image from a show in Poland.
I just heard a loud boom.
I saw it actually.
You did? Was it a plane? That's what I was thinking. It was a terrorist attack. Bob said he heard it sounded like a rocket. Your mom said there was a plane flying over, and then. Oh, she heard the noise of a plane and then a boom.
Yeah, just like a bomb that dropped, and all the building from the inside went out, like there was an explosion from the inside going out.
Oh my God! I hope there was nobody at work. I hope there was no one there. That's what I'm thinking before 9. It's the World Trade Center.
Loose-fitting trousers, wide embroidered tops, headscarves, film, microphone cables, more microphone cables, flea powder, antibiotics, painkillers, vitamin pills. For months Robert and I have prepared, and now we're about to leave to one of the most beautiful parts of Afghanistan. Tomorrow we'll fly to Islamabad, and from there we'll travel to Peshawar and north to Chitral. and there we'll pick up a donkey caravan carrying school books across the mountains into Afghanistan. Then, CNN. Breaking news. A plane has flown into the World Trade Center, and I call Robert. Switch on your television. This is Osama, I tell him. You have to call your agent. Early next day, we land in Pakistan and rush to the Taliban embassy. But nobody gets a visa. The waiting starts for an American military response.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, it's always strange to see because it's such a small strip, but here you see it, people are sitting in front, so you see like what is the dimensions of the screen. It's usually like 2.5 meter high and 14 meters wide.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
you
then
can't
it's even
see
more
everything.
impressive.
Yeah, you can't see everything in one perspective. You really have to go and look around. And the other thing that I was thinking about while seeing this fragment is also important to tell that, like, of course, this clip from the World Trade Center was not shot by them, but it's thanks to, well, the digital area that we live in. So some of the clips were searched for later on and used, like also the talk of the two women, and then this clip, and there are more clips. I think the part in Pakistan that he filmed it himself, but not sure about that actually, because they actually then were there on 12 September, one day later. So it is also, yeah, thanks to, this like taking the voice over, using your own archive. If you miss something, search for it, to put it simple and use that. And of course, at the end, there's like where the sources are named. But it's all possible. So, and then again, you have more of the cinematic feeling. You create more of the cinematic feeling than only with still images.
Yeah, I think everything, I think especially in photojournalism, I know many who are watching now are probably in the photojournalistic field. It's so uncommon to then use other people's work, or it used to be so uncommon, but I think that's changing. I think that's really something that you don't, it's now encouraged to use video footage that you found or that was shot by someone else. And I think it really makes the whole storytelling much more diverse, because you also cannot always be everywhere.
Yeah, and it's also something, of course, in the art world that's around not for ages, but for quite some time, of course. To use that, but then also again, who are you to use the archive? What's your position to that? Are you allowed to? Those questions are, of course, very important then. So just a last note on the project. I just found out that you can't see the project anymore because, as I said, in 2012 was the presentation of the book and the video. And then it traveled to quite some places, China, Australia, Luxembourg, different places in Europe. So we're quite lucky with that because it doesn't happen so often that in show travels. And then in 2016, 17, we came in contact, and I was not connected anymore. I mean, I was connected to Robert and Antoinette, but not to this part of the production. That was Submarine Channel. I'm not sure if they're still around. But in that, and that also connects to what we were discussing just before my presentation, is it what can you do in the digital world? How can you do storytelling on digital platforms? And what was happening, I think there were really the heydays, we can say now, of the web documentary. So especially custom-made websites, which is super expensive. So I think that's the reason it doesn't happen that
I
often.
love this kind of
Yeah.
storytelling. I'm so
Yeah, I
sad that
know.
it never took off.
Yeah,
To me,
yeah.
it's the ultimate form of storytelling.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so expensive.
Yeah, I think that is, and the other thing is that is the technological part of it, because I was quite surprised to find out yesterday that you can't watch this anymore. Because the films are not playing. So that I think that has to do with something, you know, I
With
tried it in different
Flash
browsers.
or
Yeah, we passed Flash, luckily. But at Paradox, we did quite a lot of these kind of digital storytelling formats. So what they did here, just to stay a little bit with Poppy, was again, you know, the narratives were already constructed. So you could do the northern route and the Balkan route, and then they added, I think, the southern route, which goes via Africa and even to South America. And that's the part that they filled in with lots of existing found footage, text, images, and create the stories by themselves with the footages that are well available. Well, you have to look for them, of course, but not their own footage.
Yeah. Well, I'm sad I can't. Well, I remember back then that I saw it, but haven't seen it recently. Sad to hear that we can't see it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the book is also, I think, sold out. So for anyone watching,
completely. Yeah,
it's
completely.
absolutely
Try
eBay, but
if you look well, you see like 2 copies there, and there's one behind. So that's you know.
You have a little pile, stock, but that's not it.
I think it's still around at Amazon, but then for like 150 or so.
Exactly.
And we have tried, I mean, especially since it toured, the exhibition toured, you know, we have tried many times to see if we could do a second edition with Hague, who was the publisher. But yeah, you have to come around with a shitload of money, and you can't do that. You know, you can do that in the beginning, you know, organize the money, but not, you know, halfway, because then a publisher has to support you, and they don't do that.
No, sadly so, because it's really a book that I think should be seen by even more people, even though it was already very popular back then. But I can imagine now with the younger generation who cannot get a hold of a copy, that's quite sad.
Yeah, and it doesn't even exist digitally, I think. Or apart from if someone has scanned it, I don't know, but yeah, it's not.
And apart now from this webinar, where people can at least have a little bit of a view of some pictures and an explanation. There must be more like that, but
so that's why I'm always happy to show it, because it connects, you know, the different things in my career, and it also answers this question of, well, just a picture on the wall, you know, what else can it be? And obviously there are pictures that can be, you know, totally on their own on the wall, and it's amazing. But if you have a story to tell, you know, then I'm really happy, you know, if those layers are included in different ways, you know. So that's why I also had these 2 examples, one from today and one from a bit earlier on.
Yeah, really lovely to see. What are we looking at now?
I mean, maybe to round off my presentation, I'm not going to dive into this. There's actually a PDF of this book, so that is on the left corner, left bottom corner. It's a bit complicated. It's from it's from Finland, so you know. No, it's the database of a university. I produced this book together with Anna-Kaisa Rastenberger, who's now director of the Fotomuseum in Helsinki. But back then we were supported by her university in Helsinki and the Mondriaan Foundation from the Netherlands, because we felt the time in 2017, this was that we should talk more as curators about photography, about actually what are we doing if we make an exhibition, or if we make a digital story, something, use a digital platform, or more broader questions like, what do we do with Instagram? You know, how could that be used by photographers? So we found a curator who's studying that, who's searching that. And we did a lot of interviews with artists and curators. So it's a blend of articles, not per se academic, more from a very practical side, and artists and curators that we had a conversation with. And you're really the first audience. We are going to launch in November in Paris Photo our second book that we gave the same name, Why Exhibit, because it's such a great title. And then we thought, well, then it's volume 2. And we decided to call it On Curating Photography. And actually, it follows the same format as 6 years ago. So we asked some people to contribute with an article on things that they were thinking about or doing or having thoughts on. So something that they wanted to dive into deeper. And we invited even more people to do interviews about their curatorial practice or about their artistic works. Some of the works I showed at the Biennale in Germany, just like the other book it's a bit hidden, is connected to the Krakow Photo Month. So some of the people were shown there. So this book comes out, and since we published it again with the university in Helsinki, in a year time, it will have open access as well. So that's a good thing about universities. They have to put it open. So
actually, someone in the chat asked if the link to the other book could be shared, but I don't think that's so easy to do now in the chat. But if it is easy, let us know.
No.
But lovely that we were the first ones to see publicly see the cover of the book of the new one. I meant, yeah. Oh, there's more questions coming in actually now.
I thought I'd give someone the time to type it over and put it in the chat. So just leave this one up.
Okay, yes.
I think there's someone who's already on it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for sharing that link. That worked out. There are a few questions. Before I get to them, I'm going to ask you a few more practical questions on... and thanks for sharing this lovely presentation. I think it gave much more insight into what you've worked on, but also maybe what people can expect or kind of maybe show you when it comes to their own work. Mm-hmm. So the practical questions are also more about that. What kind of work in your current role would you like to see coming in from photographers? And if they do want to get their work in front of you, what is the best way? Can they send a pitch? And if so, how? Like, how do you like to see work coming in? Mm-hmm. And what kind of work? Maybe we can stop the screen share so we can see you a bit bigger.
I can do that, yes.
There we are. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Oh, I have to find you. Yes, there you are. you were not with me, but now you are. Happy to see you. The kind of projects, well, that's such a wide range, especially since I'm in the museum, you know, we also have this responsibility to show some more classical projects, you know, like from the past, you know what I mean, like from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that are important still today. You know, I was not so apt to take those in my festivals, you know, because then I really wanted to show things that were very new and very on the side of experimental and pioneering with certain ways of presentation. But I'm still really interested in those, you know, the complexer the issue, the better for me. I always like it, and I'm always like fascinated by people who try indeed to trace, you know, to create images from something that's actually invisible, that's abstract, you know, like that Gold and Heroin are very good examples. I always like it when a photographer does so much research that you really see the connections between things that are happening, you know, that happened in the past or happened now. So that is my super personal individual preference as curator. Mm-hmm. And then I think in photography we are blessed with having portfolio reviews, and that is obviously something from the past. From I think you still remember that you had to go to a magazine or an art or a newspaper to show your work, you know, like you had this book, you know, you put it open, you put it on someone's desk. But that is still such a good way to get to know each other. And there are always people, I mean, there's still people and people that I have showed and exhibited their work in the past that I've met at portfolio reviews. So they're really important. Also, it gives you it is then an easy access to a wide range of different people. You know, if you go to a portfolio session, you know, you have like 10 opportunities or 5 or 10, and you have to pay for it. Often, not always, and especially since the pandemic, they turn online more and more, which also makes them accessible, easier. I mean, apart maybe from the time difference then, but that's for me really the best way to meet people. And then we have an address on our museum website, info address, and people can always send materials. Sometimes people send books. Of course, we have a look at those, you know, that's what we always do. We're not always responding because we get quite a lot in very different variations of quality. So sometimes you think, okay, we let it go. And sometimes, you know, a book ends up, or, you know, something that is sent in, like I'm always looking for issues around climate crisis and around migration, and I put them in a file. And then it shows up like maybe 5 years later. I also remember from the person Wim van Sinderen that I succeeded, that he never made a show with certain people that we are now making shows with, because
that's
he
also
or he
interesting.
ended up like on a kind of gross list, and still very important to do. So now we are doing that, you know, so.
That's nice. Yeah, I think one of the questions in the Q&A was also, let me just check the Q&A. Lucas asks, you mentioned 7 to 8 exhibitions per year in your museum. How many pitches do you receive? Okay, so that was a lot. I think that was answered. And how many are your own ideas? How many of your own ideas can you bring in?
Yeah.
And how, do you search specifically for photographers in that way? Or is it mostly coming your way?
No, I think it's a mix. I think it's the most shows come from ourselves, that we are thinking, it should be interesting to work with that or that photographer that we know, that we found somewhere via, you know, we are super active in visiting other museums, galleries, festivals, if we can, things like Unseen, Paris Photo. So we really try to be present in very different places. So that's where I follow magazines like British Journal of Photography is now next to me. Things indeed got sent in. Another way is how people approach me is via someone, you know, they've worked with someone somewhere, and then they say, oh, this, you should really see this, you know, then I take note of it because it's sent for a reason to me. And then we have traveling shows that we take over from bigger institutions, usually in Europe, because then you kind of co-create or co-produce bigger names together to make it, to make it less expensive, to make it possible. And then we have to do some shows of our collection, because it's good to have our collection out there for the audience. So it's a mix. It's a mix of
because
things.
you have that already, of course. Yeah. Let me see some of the other questions. A lot of people are saying thank you for showing the book. That was very interesting, and for sharing the link. Jessica asks, what type of mentors did you have in your career to learn from and to get inspired from? Maybe other curators, educators, art buyers.
Yeah, that's a very nice question. I like that. I think Bas, in the end, my director at Paradox, was was really a mentor. I think everything that I do today, I learned from him. We worked very, very closely together for 7 years. And
I'll put his name in the chat, guys.
Yes, he's only like 10 years older, but since I did a film career before, you know, there was a kind of 20 years difference of, you know, knowing the field, knowing how to make an exhibition, having a network. So there's really a lot I thank to him. And I always have looked to different women in particular, how they made things happen, and still raising children And I always try to, maybe not really fight, but fight in my own way, or bring on the table also the position of women, women artists, female artists, to how on earth can they make their work, if they, especially in the Netherlands, I think situation is, we are a super rich country, but in that respect, it's really, really hard to continue your career when you have kids. So there are things that somewhere where I can try to make a difference. And also then, and related to that, or what I actually wanted to say, is also really try to give support to female artists. It's, in doing an extra kind of mentoring thing, and then not really like, make a whole mentor course or something, but just, say a few things more, so that I hope I can empower them. But that wasn't your question, was the other way around.
But this was a beautiful answer.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think that's really important. And that was also a reason that I like to teach, to work with young students, and they also inspired me. There was for me something very new that I didn't understand in the first year of teaching. I thought I have to put out things there, but then I thought, oh, I can also learn, and then you get the interaction, and then you have wonderful teaching experience.
Yeah, it can really go both ways, right? I think the last question, unless there's something new in the Q&A. Oh, one pops in as I... Okay, Janine is asking, I'm working on a project that has a strong historical and environmental component, but I'm struggling to figure out how to put all the pieces together. Do you have any suggestions as to who I could work with to structure the story?
I'm afraid I have not a name that I can come up now immediately. And I don't know where you are in your career, of course, but I think it could be really helpful to do a masterclass somewhere, and or at least create a kind of people around you with whom you can have a dialogue about your work. That's always the advice I give students, because you are in that environment of getting the endless feedback until you go crazy. But it's actually really good to get a constant trail of feedback. So, start a collective, or see that you have a studio together with other people. And it can be everyone. It can also, because your work is also about a certain topic, about a certain subject. So it doesn't have to be certainly only photography people. And that is maybe something else, go to experts, work with them. But then still, you want to bring it together. So that is, that's really something to get advice from, well, maybe if possible, masterclass, mentorship, those kind of things, and portfolio reviews.
Yeah, I think that, and or look at someone you really admire, their project, someone else's project, and reach out to them. Yeah. And 7 also offers one-on-one mentoring. So you can look at the website to see maybe if you find a photographer that matches the story you're telling, then you can reach out via 7 to see if there could be a mentorship set up.
I also typed in PH Museum,
so
European based in Italy, and they have like 5-6 mentors, I think, attached to them. So it could be interesting. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you. I want to do that anyways, but another question came in. Let's do this as a last question. I really love that everyone is so engaged. Jessica says, oh, sorry. Yeah, it was right in time. What's currently working really well in the photography industry nowadays, being a curator for exhibitions, magazines, books, education? I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. What's currently working really well in the photography industry nowadays?
Well, I think I can answer that. The variety is huge, and it so depends what kind of museum, what kind of gallery you want to reach out to, what kind of publisher, you can do actually everything. There are certainly things that I don't like, or I don't have an appetite for, but then luckily I have my colleague, to say like, oh, but it is interesting, this is like a topic that I like, so let's do it, then I do it, things like that. So there's I mean, everything is possible.
That's a beautiful answer. And there were many, and I really hope, because everyone kind of stayed on. That's always a good sign, and people were very engaged. It's because you were sharing a lot of beautiful slides and insightful information, and I'm pretty sure people will also reach out to you, which they will do via you said the info email, right, on the website of the museum. Oh, she's typing it in the chat, so people know where to reach you. And I really hope nice projects will come your way, and that it's beneficial to everyone that was here in the last hour.
I think
there you go. Info
it should be this one.
fmdh.
And otherwise, it's on the website.
Okay.
So that is just yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing everything you know with us, and especially also for sharing the book cover with us, the first kind of viewing publicly. That's really cool. And good luck with the book as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for everyone for watching. And please keep an eye on our website for any upcoming events. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.